Welcome to Lake TV's Community Spotlight Show, brought to you by the great folks at COMC, Central Ozarks Medical Center, where your health is their mission. And we have got the brand new Camden County prosecutor with us here. It's Richelle Christensen Grosvenor. And so you have been, you've been a judge for what, 6, 7 years, something like that. But you've been a prosecutor, you've been a lawyer for a long time.
Yes.
You don't look old enough, but it's like 23, 24 years.
23 years,
Okay.
starting my 23rd year.
Right. And do you enjoy being a lawyer or being a judge better? And there's a difference, right?
Sure.
There's different jobs there.
Yes.
What do you like better?
So I do all criminal law, always have since the beginning. I've been a prosecutor, as you said, an elected prosecutor. I've been a criminal defense attorney, and I've been a judge. The fun thing about being a judge
It's being the power, right? You know, you die, you live, right? I mean, that's it.
Well, on the municipal level, it's basically you impose fines or supervise probation. But there is something about somebody coming up to the podium and they're on probation and they've done what they're supposed to do. And you, as the judge, get to say, well done.
Wow.
You have done a great job. And their face lights up and they take that encouragement and they just love it. I mean, it kind of surprised me, the amount of appreciation that they had for somebody acknowledging how much work that they were putting into doing the right thing.
Wow.
Right?
But the opposite's probably true too. I'm guessing, I don't know, where you have to sentence somebody or tell somebody to go where they don't want to go and they hate you for that.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
But that is the point, right? The point of our criminal justice system is to hold criminals accountable.
Right.
Right?
Supposedly.
So we see judges, and they're exactly like you're talking about. You're going to go do this, and you're going to go do that. We don't as much see the judge who says, you've just done a great job.
Yeah.
You've done what we have asked you to do.
It's not as dramatic, right? It's not Law and Order,
But equally important.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You got that right. Okay, so you were adopted,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
as a young child. Did you ever get to meet your birth mother?
Yes, I've
You
met
did?
both my birth parents.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
What was that like?
Interesting.
Yeah.
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 I have a relationship with both of my birth parents.
Okay.
Anyone who knows my personality knows I'm just going to dig in and find things out. So I was not that person who was going to go my whole life and not at least try.
Yeah.
I had just started law school, and I knew the agency that my adoption was through. And so I just contacted them and said, do you have any information about my birth parents?
Yeah.
You know, being adopted is something that is, you have questions, of course.
Sure.
Like why, but there's also legitimate health issues that you want to know about.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. For me, honestly, I didn't have any expectations. I had a very loving, you know, like I've talked about my dad a lot growing up. So I just had some unanswered questions that I wanted to know about.
Yeah.
And so they still had phone numbers after 25 years of my birth mother's parents. They still had the exact same phone numbers. And so I think it took them about 5 minutes to figure out where she was at and get her on the phone. And because, of course, they have to give permission first.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah. Apparently, see, I didn't realize this at the time, but in 1973, when you put your baby up for adoption, you have to sign a piece of paper that says you will never, ever try to find that child.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought that was the way it still was.
Maybe.
Huh.
But for her, I mean, she took that seriously, and she had waited all those years
Wow.
to see if I was ever going to reach out.
Wow. And so she thought about you. She had wondered where
sure.
you were and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's like, Great American Christmas movie right there, right? So that's...
Well, I do work with the Pregnancy Help Center.
Yeah.
And it's because of, my being adopted. I think that life obviously is valuable. I don't think my life only had value because she said so. I think my life had value because God said so. And I don't think it only had value after I was born. I think my life had value in the womb. And so I work with the Pregnancy Help Center to spread that message of kind of hope and love, right?
Yeah.
Which is that this is a child that ended up being me, but there's others out there who have also been adopted and went to loving families. And yeah.
Well, and even in the great United States of America, where abortion was legal, still is legal in many places for so long. If your mother had decided to abort you instead of giving you up for adoption, I mean, obviously a huge change in history there.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing. So, all right. So, back to the job of Camden County prosecutor, the most powerful job in Camden County. You take that seriously. You don't say, oh, that's not true. That is true, isn't it?
The part about it being the most powerful person in the county.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of that is that being a criminal defense attorney and you work one-on-one with clients, this is a big deal. Every time the prosecutor signs their name on a charge, you have in fact changed somebody's life. Particularly if it's a crime against a child. You never get out from under that, especially now with all sorts of Google. They can find out if you've even been arrested, even if after the fact you are found to be not guilty or something comes up, they can still find that you were arrested for that. So yes, I take that very seriously. As a prosecutor, you have to make sure to the best of your ability that you do it right.
Right.
It's hard. It's hard because we don't have a crystal ball. There's no way to see the future. You're literally making your absolute best decision without knowing the outcome.
Yeah.
And so electing people who are faith-based, who take this very seriously, like we talked about last time, it's a weighty position.
Yeah.
It's responsibility. It's not about the power. It's literally about showing up and doing the right thing every day.
Right. There's a unique perspective on life there. All right, so we're talking with Richelle Christensen Grosvenor, Camden County prosecutor. We'll have more with Richelle right after this. If you love the lake, you gotta love Lake TV. At COMC, your health is our mission. Central Ozarks Medical Center is growing in our community with a new dental location to serve you in Eldon and a new location in Laurie. COMC also makes your children a priority with a mobile dental unit serving schools in rural areas where access can be a challenge. COMC also offers OBGYN, sports medicine, pediatric, and behavioral health care. Get more info on how COMC can help you at centralozarks.org. COMC, where your health is our mission. Welcome back to the COMC Lake TV Community Spotlight Show. We're talking with Camden County Prosecutor Richelle Christensen Grosvenor. And so we were talking about the weightiness of the job. People's lives are on the line. You affect people's lives every day. You've mentioned God several times, faith several times here in our conversation. Obviously, your faith is a huge part of your life. Do you take that into your job?
Of course.
Yeah.
Who am I? If you ask me, I would say faith and family. Married to my husband, Rob. We were actually high school sweethearts.
Really?
And separated when I moved to Missouri and got back together 20 years later.
Wow.
We have 2 children together. I have a son who's a junior in college this year, and then Grace is a sophomore at the United States Naval Academy.
Wow.
But going back to the faith, the thing that I've had to learn over the years, and that really helps me in the prosecutor job, is that God knows, God sees, and God is the one that I answer to.
Yeah.
And the reason that that's important is because every day you make decisions, and there's going to be someone who's not going to agree with your decision.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because victims and defendants are always on the opposite side, no matter what, right?
Yeah.
So no matter what, somebody's always upset about a decision that a prosecutor makes, okay? So that's why you have to have that faith base, because you can't be blown by the wind, right, at whatever somebody wants. You have to stay the course, and like I said, just do what's right.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't always know. I mean, there have been cases where, somebody, you give them an opportunity and then they screw up.
Right.
So are you going to come back to me and say, well, you made a mistake the first time? I did the best I could do.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when you truly believe that God is in the middle of it, and your faith is based in the understanding that he sees everything, and that he knows my true intention.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Then it has to be okay.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Do you get attacked for that by your opponents, by your enemies, or whatever?
Attacked for that? What do you?
For your faith, for relying on God.
No, I mean, I think particularly in our community, I think people want, whether they have their own faith or not, electing someone who's faith-based
Yeah.
is a good thing.
You would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it means we answer to a higher power.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you're not just doing everything for your own benefit.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing about Jesus we all, I was in church 3 times a week growing up, but it has to become personal, right?
Yeah.
It's about that relationship. And so as it became more personal to me and it became my own relationship, I'm a very strong-willed person. And so I would go to God and say, I'm strong-willed, and yet you talk about meekness.
Right.
Trying to figure out what this meant.
Right.
So I finally started really looking at Jesus and what was meekness. And my favorite definition of meekness is strength under control.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not about being weak ever. Jesus was loving and compassionate and kind, but he had a backbone of solid steel.
Yeah.
And what a great example for us.
He put a whip together and turned over tables and stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
He knew what was right and wrong, and he did it, and he didn't care what everybody else thought about him.
Yeah.
And that's the perfect example right there.
Yeah. Wow, that's a pretty good leader for you, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're down to just a couple of minutes here, but I got to get back to marrying your high school sweetheart.
Oh, yeah.
After 20 years, how did you guys find each other again?
Well, so we dated for several years in high school.
Yeah.
And then his mom and I were really close. And I was going back out there. My grandma still lived out there. And I really wanted to see. Yeah,
Okay.
My grandma lived in Montana, sorry. And my daughter and I were going out there to see my grandma. And I wanted to see my now husband's mom, because she was just such a wonderful person.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you wanted to see if he was still there too, huh?
Honestly, I did not know anything about what had happened in his life. And so I actually was able to find him through all the, internet stuff.
Yeah.
And just called him and said, hey, how do I get a hold of your mom?
Right.
And
It's just started from
the
there.
rest is history,
Wow.
as they say. Yeah.
That is greatness. So how did he ask you out for the first time? Was it just hey, you want to hang out, or what?
Well, he lived in Montana then.
Yeah.
I lived in Missouri then.
But you were going to see the grandma or what?
Yeah,
right?
I think we went out for ice cream or just kind of hung out. Yeah.
That's so cool. All right. So wonderful story. Okay. As the Camden County prosecutor, do you like to hear from the public?
Of course.
Okay. How do people get in touch with you or give you their thoughts or whatever?
Well, so I'm not actually in the job yet.
Right.
But we are going to have a social media page that will have contact information.
Okay.
Right now in the prosecutor's office, if you call, you get not a real person answering the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to change that. We're going to make sure that there's a live person that always answers the phone. And so people just need to call the prosecutor's office and you'll be directed to the right place.
Okay.
Here's another thing I want to encourage people to do. You said, do I want to hear from the public? Yes, please. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I encourage anybody to come to court. Real criminal justice system is not what's on TV.
Right.
And it can be very confusing and complex. It's really easy to armchair quarterback, right?
Yeah.
If you don't really understand everything. And so just going to court even once, people say they get a ticket and they show up for a one docket. Wow, that's nothing like what I expected it to be. So I encourage people to get active in the system.
They can just show up and sit and watch.
Court is open for
Okay.
sure.
How
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah.
All right. So that is Richelle Christensen Grosvenor, Camden County prosecutor. What a blessing to be able to sit down, talk with you, get to know you better. Thank you for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us for Lake TV's Community Spotlight Show.